I am running it for tonight. Greg is down with the flu, and Ryan, he's out as well. He's got some things going on out his way. But tonight we got Brief Moment with Cobra, and we got Eli here with me. We're gonna have some fun tonight. What's going on, guys?
Yeah, it's going, man. I mean, the snow definitely affected everyone, especially Bowman Gray Stadium. So
Hmm.
that's why we have a bit of delay, unfortunately, and everything else, it's whatever.
If only it was football, then this wouldn't be mattering right now. But here we are. Eli, how are you?
I'm doing great, buddy. How are y'all doing?
I'm doing good. I wish we had some NASCAR results to talk about, but the big thing that
This is why it needs to be football. Unfortunately, we have to deal with this racing bullshit where everyone goes around in circles. But Yinzer, get out of here! Not now! Not now!
wrong show, Yinzer. Oh man, that you can't get that guy away from here at all. He is like cursed to
I
he
have
what
I have I have tried listening to Cat's advice and putting Ravens hexes. I've put brown stains all over the place. I've even tried to lure him away with Iron City beer and Yingling, but it doesn't work. He manages to creep through.
man, you just need to lock that basement door and have a wallpaper of Mike Tomlin there. Maybe he'll keep him in his basement.
Uh, I tried that. I tried to put a poster of Bill Cowher up there, so he'd be distracted by it, but nope, doesn't work.
But yeah, so back to why everyone's listening. We're going to talk about NASCAR and not the Yinzer. Um, so Clash still is yet to happen. They said it was going to get delayed to Monday, and then it was going to get delayed again to Wednesday night. And I don't know about y'all, but trying to watch some NASCAR on a Wednesday night on half mile course, and it also saying it's potentially going to be rainy. So now you're going to add wet weather tires for a Clash. It's it's not the best look for NASCAR. So we're going to talk about it. Cobra, I know you only got a few more minutes, bud. So I'm going to let you say your piece, and then me and Eli are going to dig more into this.
It's NASCAR doesn't have a choice in the matter. I know they'd love to have better weather, but hey, you got to piss with the cock you're given. And you don't. I know you don't like NASCAR doesn't like to run wet weather tires. They don't like this snowy bullshit that's going on that we have to deal with up north here. But you know what? Screw it. Again, piss with the cock you're given. Figure it out. We do up here, man. So, shit.
Yeah, it's not the best scenario. I think in the history of the Clash, I think this is the worst it's ever been. Um, Definitely add some ammo to those who have been clamoring to bring the Clash back to Daytona. Eli, what are your thoughts of everything as of right now?
I've got a lot to say, actually. Like, do you just want me to lay it all out here? How you want to do it?
Let's do it. Just get hot and
All right.
heavy right from the get go.
Smack it
All
on the
right. So,
tabletop. Let them know it's business time.
all right. So, last week, of course, we had that
All right, man. I'm out of
legendary.
here.
All right, buddy. Be safe. All right. So, last weekend, of course, we had this legendary ice storm that came through. Brought some snow, especially more toward the northeast in that direction. And I thought we were done with winter weather for a good bit. I was crossing my fingers. I was like, all right, it's good. Like it'll be all right. So I'm sitting at work and I get a notification on my phone for the weather. And of course, I live in Bristol. I'm only about 3 hours away from the track, and I see anywhere from 8 to 12 inches of snow. And that's like the really one hard thing to predict is GFS versus Euro. I don't know a whole lot about it, but I do know that the odds for this to happen were not going to happen. It was just a really long range model that turned into reality. So breaking down that first part, you can say this was forecasted a week out, and they had time to really make a decision. Well, none of this was finalized until Friday, right? So that puts you within a 48-hour thing, less than 48 hours if we're talking about any of the events on Saturday. So, to everybody faulting NASCAR and saying, "No, we should have took it back to Daytona," damn NASCAR over this. Okay, first off, NASCAR was put in a really unfortunate situation that they have not been put in a really long time, at least that I can think of.
No, I
Um,
agree.
so we use the term proactive a lot in this industry. It's important to be proactive. And to be honest, I don't see how much more proactive NASCAR could have been. Now, a lot of people are criticizing them, to moving this on a Wednesday and the whole ticket refund situation. That's been a hot mess from what little I've dabbled into it. It was going to be that you could refund your ticket and you could get 120% credit back fee through BGS or Bowman Gray Stadium, however you want to phrase it. But now they've flipped that around because there's going to be action on the track regardless. So, you know, I don't think. Okay, I think that is one thing NASCAR has probably handled the worst out of this was the way they've announced the refunds and the information they've been able to provide. What little, I don't
Hmm.
think they've handled that greatly. But as far as just getting in the clash, and you said it or the other guy said it. I don't know his name. What's his name? Jason
Cobra.
Cobra. Okay, I don't. Okay, my bad. I don't talk to him that much. I
Yep,
just
all
know his
good.
voice. My bad. Um, we're talking about rain. Now Wednesday, and unfortunately, just looking right here at the Weather Channel right now, that really looks like that's what's going to happen. If the trends, of course, keep moving up from the Gulf of America, Gulf of Mexico, however you want to say it, um, the trends are more likely towards rain. So, my question to you is, Jamie, I've sit here and I've yapped and I pretty much summarized this whole thing. How do you save this event from a marketing standpoint and from a TV or, a televised standpoint? How, like, is there any way to salvage this?
Man, I feel like marketing wise, you're gonna have like have they announced like if like they're just gonna let anybody come in that is willing to come out with the crappy weather?
As far as I've read, it is still a paid to enter event. You still need to have a ticket at the gate.
So I in this kind of emergency scenario, because let's be real, it's going to be a Wednesday night or starting Wednesday afternoon. Main race kicks off Wednesday night. You're looking at the heart of the week when you're going to be pairing up against um I would say hockey. They have their Wednesday night rivalry nights. So when on Wednesday nights is usually a big draw for hockey, it's a big draw for basketball. And from a TV perspective, like obviously like all of us at home, like we're gonna watch it because this is gonna be the first dose of 2026 NASCAR that we're gonna get. And we're gonna watch, but that's you're already battling two other huge entities
Right.
from a viewership standpoint. I'm scared to death that they're gonna show this and there's gonna be hardly anybody in the stands.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's something we all need to be prepared for. Is Bowman Gray? I think it can seat 17,000, maybe upwards of that. I don't know for sure on it. Um, so if that's empty, that's not a good look there.
Mm-mm.
Um, my
So
next
I was
question. No, go
you,
ahead.
but you
Go ahead.
said yeah, you were talking about from from both the media and then the financial aspect. The the financial aspect is maybe like give them like a credit, like if they because I don't know how long Bowman Gray has a contract for the Clash, but maybe give them a credit to go towards next year's Clash, but and then open it up as a just come on everybody that we can possibly get that's willing to come out on a Wednesday night, especially with the expected weather coming in.
Yeah,
Like you need to do what you need to do to get asses in seats.
exactly. Yeah. My next big thing here is, and I've thought about it, and I don't know if it's too early to say it, but I think it's in the mind really of anybody that has been over this event or was part of scheduling this event, and it was something I preached when this event was announced last year. North Carolina, Virginia, Tennessee, Northern Georgia, you know, February, it's cold.
Yeah.
That's just part of it come February. It's cold around here. Um, and that was something I had said last year was if it snows, Bowman Gray is the last place you want to be if it snows. And just to, I guess, applaud NASCAR here. I don't do it enough is what I get told. But, I am proud that they released a statement to fans saying don't travel in this because they are the world's worst for doing anything but that.
Yeah, for sure.
So I will give them credit for that. But looking at next year, this is just me. Unless we have some crazy stuff go on Wednesday, and it would have to be some crazy tomfoolery. I don't know what would have to happen on the track for me to change my opinion on it. But I'm looking at this event right now, and I'm going, this is not a position I ever want to put myself in again. And it was completely preventable. It was.
It was. Yeah.
I know we can't forecast weather a year out, but you can definitely limit yourself in the places you put yourself. And this was not a good look. I mean, it's just a really bad idea. It's like, going to Daytona during hurricane season. It's not smart. Now,
Yeah.
you can break off into this question. Okay, well then where do you move the Clash? And I don't think Daytona is the right answer. I don't.
I don't either, and I will tell you why. Because back when we had the Clash at the Coliseum, the debut of it years ago, we got on this podcast, and there were people on this podcast who were moaning and complaining about how it's out in California and all this stuff. And I brought up this statement. When was the last time anybody gave a flip or even paid any remote attention to the Clash when it was at Daytona? It's been very long time since the Clash has ever been a big topic prior to that point. Because the Clash was just more of just a practice session on, hey, let's see how our cars work in the draft. Let's see how they work side by side. Oh, okay, that's enough side by side. Now we're just going to go single file and waste everybody's time. That's Daytona for the Clash.
Yeah, and too, I'm gonna play devil's advocate here just for a second. Um, and okay, well, no, I'll go back to your question was when did anybody give a flip about it being at Daytona? Okay. I think people I think they cared that it was at Daytona, but it just it had nothing to do with the race being at Daytona. They were so used to the original, and I don't mean what we have now, the original speed weeks, the practice we had, the things
Yeah.
2 weeks out before, that. And even if you do take the Clash back, we still don't have that. So that negates that. But back to what I was saying, playing devil's advocate. I think the big thing and the big reason, and it had nothing to do with putting ass in seats, because they were able to sell 15 to 30,000 tickets for the Clash. Okay, that's more than Bum and Gray right there. Does it look like it? No, but that really wasn't the problem. It was cars getting junked for no good reason. It was expensive.
Mhm.
I mean, it was. So I agree with taking it away from Daytona for that reason. But at the same time, why would you take cars and put them on a football field and say go at it? That's not much better.
And it's just nose to bumper. So again, you're not solving your issue of cars getting junked.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I don't really know where you would take it. I don't. I mean, you can throw a bunch of tracks out there and have your stance on that, but in my opinion, I think the Clash is kind of like NFL preseason. There's no need for it. There's not. Is it cool? Yes. Does it bring in money through sponsors? Absolutely. But until you can find a mix of not being able to junk everybody in the field and still have a good racing performance and find somewhere with good weather, because Daytona's not great for that either, but we
Yeah.
had one week in Daytona where it wasn't raining all week and it was snowing somewhere else and everybody's like, "Oh, we got to take it back to Daytona." So until you can find that, um I don't know. It'll just be really interesting to see what conversation comes from this because it needs to be had.
No, I 100% agree. There definitely needs to be a conversation, maybe even again, like you're talking about with like the planning, there has to be a plan B. And that plan B has to be maybe they get a contract with a track that is within up an approximate like mile radius. I don't know what that mile number should be,
Right.
but maybe say any tracks that fit the criteria of what we're looking to do with the Clash within X amounted miles from the track, we will put it out there. And then if we have to invoke it, like obviously there's going to be money that's going to be pushed out. Anyone who bought tickets for that will go to the said racetrack, and they move it that way. Um, but at the same time, like haulers are already there. They're using up endless amounts of electricity trying to keep those cars warm,
Yeah.
especially during the snowed in portion of this whole delay. And so that was just adding another expense. So I don't even know if that's even a great idea. Um, I think this is a good learning experience. And as much as there's been debates about the cost of travel and all of that for the Clash, this almost makes me want to say, like, if you want to avoid this kind of situation again, maybe we need to go back to the West Coast for the Clash. Maybe there, I'm sure there's tracks out there that are similar to Bowman Gray that NASCAR can use for the Clash, or go out and take another football team stadium and do a Clash out there inside their football stadium.
Now, wasn't there a rumor at one point in time to do it at Dodger Stadium in LA?
There was.
I remember it. I didn't read much into it, but I do remember that faintly.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, I mean,
And if they pull things like that, like I know they had the baseball game in the middle of Bristol.
yeah, they
Collabs like
did
that
that.
are cool things to do that would draw experiences and draw people to watch just mostly so that they can see the layout of everything. So maybe even go like do a stadium series with like some other baseball teams that are central to West Coast. I mean, you could have done I mean, how I doubt that they would do it, but think about the Dallas Cowboy Stadium, AT&T Stadium hosting the Clash, the roar of the engines ricocheting off the walls. That would be pretty cool in an indoor NASCAR race, because when you go inside AT&T Stadium, they literally have windows up on the top that open up, which could release some of the sound. I'm just throwing it out there. I highly doubt that there would ever do anything out there, but again, just creatively thinking, what are some opportunities that we have? You could have done it at uh, in St. Louis. Instead of doing the track out there, maybe do it at the old Ram Stadium that is just sitting there in ruins that's not being used for anything.
I have said it since they left Bristol Dirt, and that same dirt group has, which I don't think they're ever going to go away at this point. I really wish they would, but they're not. Um, everybody is so hell bent on dirt, going back to dirt. To me, it doesn't seem like a crazy idea to maybe go out to Vegas and run a
Mm.
dirt race on the dirt track there. It is a dirt track. It's not makeshift, you know, there's a lot of exploring to do. It's just, I guess, cost wise is figuring that out
Right,
too.
right. And then you're talking about that's another date for Vegas. If you were to do that, so there's a lot of pawns that are working on here, but at the end of the day, I think this is good for NASCAR. And the reason why I say that is because it's from a learning experience. We now know what the absolute worst case scenarios what can look like, and I think they will rebound from it. Now, with that being said, I'm still looking forward to Wednesday night. I'm still looking forward to seeing what some of these cars do with the higher horsepower. I know that they say Bowman Gray is not the track to be really seeing the difference of the increase of horsepower, but at the same time, if there's a chance and someone tries to make a move and they get into the gas too quick and it kicks out from underneath them because of that track being flat and not banked, I'm going to like that because that shows me that these drivers really have to work on their throttle control. And we're going to be looking at a season as since they revamped everything where consistency is going to matter. And I'm like I said, I'm going to watch it because I'm just excited for NASCAR to be quote unquote back for this year. But I don't know. It's going to be interesting.
Real quick here before we end the topic of the Clash, I know we've harped on it for a little bit. Um, so when they made the schedule change, and it was originally going to be on a Monday, so they moved it from Sunday to Monday. Or no. It was just going to be on Sunday. They got rid of Saturday events.
Correct.
I'm talking about that change. There's no heat races. It goes just straight to last chance qualifying. How does that work? How does this format work? Because I don't understand it.
I almost want to. I didn't quite understand it either. I almost want to fall on things of like the way that they used to do it, where like you had like your top 10 last year, and then maybe the prior, like anyone who got a win automatically got in, and then you had your last chance qualifier for anyone outside of that, and maybe they say, hey, we're going to do last chance qualifier, the whoever finishes in the final 4 to 6 spots don't make it into the main race, and the final 4 get a bye into the main race. I don't know. I have absolutely no idea how they were going to do it. That's just how I would rationalize it inside my head.
Right. And that, yeah, I mean, that does check there. But then, too, like, let's say, okay, we did the last chance qualifying race because there's no heats. We get to the actual race. And from my understanding of it is you have to get to either the completion of stage 2 or halfway before you can call an event, right?
Right.
Okay, let's say we're not under that threshold. And, or, okay, sorry, we're not over that threshold. And it rains. And it puts us in a terrible dilemma, which I'm not wishing, but it's a question that needs to be asked because forecasting is all over the place at this point. How much more leeway would NASCAR be willing to give to try to get this thing in before it's just we have got to get back to the shop and we have got to get ready for Daytona?
Well, I feel like, especially since they've already announced that they're going to be utilizing the rain tires, they're going to say, "Hey, we've made our bed, and it may not be the best, but we're getting it in today." I really think if it goes any further than what Wednesday night was, they're just going to call it because it is only the Clash. It's not a points paying race.
And I think that would be the smartest thing to do at that point. It's
I
just
agree.
cut your losses. It's just
Yeah.
it sucks. But that's all I really got to say about the Clash. I don't know about you. I harped on that one for a minute.
No. I think we definitely aired our grievances on the delay. Like I said, I'd much rather be talking about what we learned and what we've seen, and is there anything that we can pull from it to correlate towards some of the other short tracks that we're going to be seeing in the rest of the season. So we'll have to table that conversation for next week as we gear up for Daytona. But on an unfortunate side note, I don't know if you've seen there, Eli, but uh, there was some breaking NASCAR news on the political side of things involving the Epstein files. Brian Vickers and his wife were both names on the list. Brian Vickers' wife was one of his bodyguards, and then there was quote unquote mentions of Joe Gibbs, but there was never anything shown where he was physically involved or anything like that. So I wanted to kind of bring this up mostly just to not necessarily focus on Brian Vickers and his wife, but more to go to the aid of Joe Gibbs, solely because social media can take this and take it a mile. And just because there's been conversations that may have had involving Joe Gibbs, he's not the person that people should be targeting, nor should he be getting treated any different because of a mentioning of his name. Because I mean, let's be honest, Brian Vickers was a driver of his, so there's very plausible reasons as to how his name could come up, probably just through basic conversation. What are your thoughts on this?
Um, I think it's something that the NASCAR community needs to be very carefully how they address it in a public spotlight. Um, Stating the facts, I think, is probably the most safest thing you can do. Um, you know, I'm not a political person. I don't really have ties one way or another to any political organization or group. Um, so I would say that it is important to know that from from my perspective and everything that I have read, which I would encourage everybody to do their own research on this topic if you are curious about it.
Mhm. And don't
Um,
just do viral like 10 to 30-second clips and use
yeah,
that to base your opinion.
yeah. You know, everybody is innocent until proven guilty. And I think a lot of people will run with that statement, especially with something like this, because, it's very easy to take another figure or figures within these files and say that. And clearly that's not the truth. But with this, I think that does more or less apply. But headlines can really make or break somebody. And I remember this too a few years ago when a rapper slash music artist got in trouble. I think we all know who P Diddy is,
Yeah.
and
Yep.
Jeff Gordon was on P Diddy's yacht in Miami back in 2012. So, is that a good look? No, but at the same time, it's unfortunate, and it doesn't really put the sport in a good spotlight. Like right now, we just got out of a trial with Denny Hamlin and 2311, all that. So,
Yep. Yep.
that's not a great look by any means. But I
But at the
mean,
same time, it's not like catapulting them backwards either.
no, it's not. It's just not a good look. And I'll be completely honest. And this is something that someone can clip what I'm getting ready to say and just run with it. So I need everybody to take this statement with caution. But back in the early '90s, early 2000s, even mid 2000s, if you had money and you were in a elitist figure form, or you just had money and were an investor of some form, it's hard not to run into people like this.
That is true. Yeah.
So I think it's important to know that um, just because somebody may have associated with someone or had conversations with someone doesn't mean they're a bad person. I'm sure we've all had conversations in our day-to-day lives with people that we find out later down the road that they're not a good person, and they might have done something that we didn't know about. And
Hmm.
that can be within any form, whether if that's criminal, civil, or just a day-to-day dispute. So that's something to keep in mind too. But back to the point, it does suck to read something like that.
Yeah, especially when we're talking about a figure like Joe Gibbs, who doesn't matter what, if you've attended a race, then there is always on like the Sunday mornings, there is there's like a raceway like Bible gathering, and usually they're using a Bible of some sort, and they're also using information that would come from Joe Gibbs and his personal outreach, uh, with all the things that he's already gone through with his family, trying to make the world a better place. And regardless if you're religious or not, like like Joe has had every right to kind of take the deck that life had given him and just kind of keep it to himself and just stay as a NASCAR owner, former Washington Redskin coach, and just kind of keep it to himself. But he's been trying his best to make a difference in this world using his personal life experiences. I know he has a book called The Game Plan that talks about mental health. So uh, I just don't want to see all the great things that he has been trying to do and the changes that he wants to inspire in the world to get uh, dampened by something like this that comes out. That's more my thoughts on that.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I don't really have much else to say on that. That's a really good way to put it.
Yeah. On to a better subject. We talked about it last year. We were talking about the rebirth of IROC, and 2026 they will have their Heritage Cup Invitational. It has been confirmed that it will be on April of 2026, between the 9th and the 11th. It is going to be on the 10/10 Motor Club road course. Um, Not a fan of IROC being on a road course, but I know that they have driven it in the past. But as of right now, there is roughly about 10 drivers that are slated to run in this race, and we're talking about a road course for 10 drivers. That doesn't scream great marketing to me.
No, I don't.
I will list off the name of the drivers that have been confirmed. Now, hopefully, by the time that April comes, we'll have more drivers added to this list, and maybe that will make up for it. But so we have Scott Pruitt, Max Pappas, Tommy Kendall, Tony Drissy, uh, Mark Martin, Bobby Labonte, Ken Schrader, some great legends there. Kurt Busch and Jeff Gordon were the latest two to be announced. Um, Ironically enough, Kurt Busch being the young blood in all this. So does that change anything for you now that Jeff Gordon is actually getting back in the car and is going to race in this race?
Um, I mean, I'll keep up with it. I don't really know a whole lot about the IROC stuff, to be honest with you. Um, I'm trying to think. Like, I don't really know a whole lot about the IROC stuff, but I mean, yeah, I'll definitely keep up with it. Anything that Jeff Gordon attaches himself to, I'll
Yeah.
watch.
So the IROC for me, because I'm 36, so I grew up watching like Dale Earnhardt Jr., Dale Earnhardt Sr., Jeff Gordon, and all of a lot of like the known quantities racing in IROC, and they would always have these very unique schemes that was sponsored by True Value. It would be like a solid color car, and then you would have this black strip on the side skirt, which would have their name printed in that black strip, and it would kind of go like diagonal up like
Right.
this. They looked more like street model cars rather than the typical um, like builds that we would typically see in NASCAR. So it gives a different look and kind of really puts it on the driver to see who can wheel that thing around better. Um, and it did provide some great entertainment. And but the thing is, the fields for these races were a lot bigger because it was almost like a glorified like best of the best in motorsports would come in for this race. So you would have guys who was like a IMS champion or a dirt car champion, or and then combined with some of the NASCAR guys, some of the truck guys, you every now and again you would get maybe somebody who dabbled uh, in like the IndyCar slash Formula One style of race cars. It wasn't very often, but every now and again you would, and it just made for a cool, unique experience to see all the people that you would put in a bracketing of like good to great drivers in motorsports, and they're all competing against each other. That was the original concept of IROC. I think this is more of just a slow build, and who knows if it continues or not. But I knew I couldn't go on without mentioning that they did confirm a date, which was pretty huge for the rebirth of it. And I just look forward to keeping tabs on this as the days goes on, just to see what else is going to be coming up with it.
So where are they doing this race at again? Say it one more time.
So it's the 10/10 Motor Club Road Course.
Where is
It's
that
in
at?
Concord, North Carolina. Concord, North Carolina is
Okay.
very close to Charlotte.
So I did a little bit of research here because I was curious on it. And I know more what you're talking about now. It just took me a second. Is that an SMI property? Because I don't understand why they're the ones selling the tickets for it.
I'm I don't I don't think that it is an SMI property. However, it could be a contracting um situation because it is involving some NASCAR drivers that are on here, and maybe it's just better for business, better for the experience, and better for um just resources to get tickets sold and to do media and things like that. That would be my guess. That is more of like a contract obligation.
Yeah. Okay.
But to end it off, because I don't have any type of trivia for tonight, because at the end of the day, we still have yet to see the race. So we're gonna get into our last topic, and I don't know if you've seen it, Eli. The Daytona 500 hasn't sold out yet, which is very alarming to me. Usually, it's almost next to impossible to get tickets at this point, knowing that we're only like a week out. So I know you had done more research on that, as that's what you kind of dabble with. So I'm going
Right.
to give you the floor.
So it's interesting. Usually, like, to anybody that doesn't watch a whole lot of NASCAR and doesn't understand the perimeters of this is something that they market this race on weeks out of. Is it's sold out, and then Fox Sports or somebody will research the hotel rooms near the area and will post pictures of sky high prices. Like, they market this event on just the fact that it's so hard to get tickets to. So that right there at face value is alarming. Now, when I first saw that, I was like, okay, well, we have all this AI generated stuff out here right now. It's really hard to believe an article you see just with anything anymore. So I
That is
went
true.
in, I went on Daytona, looked it up, and yeah, there's still quite, I wouldn't say quite a bit. I would say a good little section left. They've probably sold 75%, which is kind of still alarming. We're a week out from this event, and I think they will probably end up selling it out. Now, I think the biggest reason for that is Ticketmaster has completely pretty much restructured to every SMI event and most non-SMI events for NASCAR. Last year they added Daytona, they added Martinsville, Pocono, and there was a couple others they added too. I'm trying to think. Michigan, it's on Ticketmaster now.
Mhm.
Um, maybe Homestead. I want to say they added Homestead on there too. So the way they've restructured stuff, it's so hard to really tell what's being sold and what's a resale now, just because they've they've flipped their system around completely. But this is another interesting. It's kind of a break off here on it. Last year for the Coke 600, it by technicality did have a sellout crowd. There was no tickets available to buy on Charlotte Motor Speedway. However, come race time, which I mean, don't get me wrong, it was really packed. But it wasn't sold out. So, are we starting to maybe see a trend now with some tracks where it's not, necessarily a big thing where you have to see this too? Now, in this break off here, um, which Jamie, you will have more insight on this than I ever would. I just remember bits and pieces of it. I remember because my parents had season tickets to Bristol from '07 spring to 2020.
Mm-hmm.
And there was only two Bristol events I missed. I missed the 2023 dirt race, and I missed the 2023 night race. I didn't go to Bristol at all that year, but every other year I went. However, in 2008 and 9, we had this great thing called the recession. Do you remember that?
Yep, I remember that.
Okay.
Times were tough.
Now, did you go to Dover in those years?
I did. I didn't. That was back when Dover still had a couple race dates. Um, but so I would choose which one I was going to go to because I couldn't afford to go to both.
Right.
So most times I opted to go towards like the summer/fall race, and the spring one was the one that I would always kind of skip just because it's Delaware and it gets cold still in the spring.
So, how was the crowd there during that time?
During that time, um, it started that I'm gonna say ultimately that's what started Dover's downfall when it comes to ticket sales. Because prior to that, I remember as a kid having to get up with my dad at 6 o'clock in the morning, living only about 20 to 25 minutes from the racetrack, and having to be out the door by 7 o'clock. And we would hope to have been able to get parked by like 10 o'clock, 10:30, because that's how backed up traffic was trying to get into Dover.
Right.
I remember lot parties. To anybody who's ever been to Dover in the past, if you've ever heard of a Lot 7 camping party, that was where you wanted to be if you were camping over the weekend at Dover. But during those times, that's when you started to see people not show up due to lack of income or the skyrocketing of prices. Uh, and it's just been a slow descent down to now only having a non-point race as your only experience to get to Dover now.
So, with that being said right there, and the question I asked before was the '08, '09 era of the recession and looking at ticket sales now, which I'm not trying to forecast or anything. We're going into a recession, but what I can tell you is that the market is different and it's changing, and it's not changing in a good way. Prices are still up on a lot of things, and people are struggling right now. Um, and it's not necessarily, I don't think it's people want to go to the 500. I don't think it means as much. But there was a really interesting marketing call I had the other day. And we were talking about ticket sales and whatnot. And someone had shared an article saying that ticket sales were great in 2025. And all the article talked about was tracks that had recently came back, like Wilkesboro. Um, Wilkesboro was on there. Rockingham was on there. There was a few other tracks that were on there. And what I'm trying to get at though is when all these articles were being written, they were focusing on these smaller places that were, Bowman Gray. Um, that is something right there, and I think that's why Prime played a big part in it last year too. We are shifting in an era slowly but surely where people don't want to go to the track as much. They don't.
Mm.
You know, there will always be those races where there's going to be a good crowd of people, but we are slowly and shifting towards this whole streaming thing. And that right there is concerning.
So the other thing that I feel like we need to definitely talk about as well, especially if we're just kind of like trying to narrow it down to our tunnel vision of just Daytona in general. I don't think it's more of a problem with like ticket sales as it is airfare costs. Because you got to think, majority of the people that are going to Daytona for the Daytona 500, only a small percentage of them actually live in Florida.
Right.
So you're getting people coming from across the globe to watch the Daytona 500, and airfare tickets are just absolutely ridiculous. I don't know if you've ever just randomly went on like Southwest or American Airlines just to see, I wonder how much it would cost me to get from here to Daytona.
Right.
So you either fly into Orlando or you fly into Tampa. And I did that, and I even use a local one here in Delaware called a Velo. And even with a Velo, it was still going to cost me right around $500 to $600 round trip just to get flights to Florida.
Right.
And that's a low end airport. That's not even the mainstream guys. So I can't even imagine what those prices would look like.
So let me ask you this question, then, and I completely agree with that. Let me ask you this. This is, I guess, a question more or less that NASCAR would be asking someone in their vicinity, because obviously they can't control, they can't do anything with inflation. They can't do anything with airfare, hotel costs. They can do some things to it. I mean, hotels, it's a little bit different than airfare. Um, r- do you try at some tracks to fix the ass and seats problem? The Bristol Spring Race is one. Or do you completely just abandon that idea at this point and try to secure confirmed streaming dates for those? Like UFC, that's the best example I could give of that. Pay-per-view was going down. You know, granted, the venues for UFC not huge, but still ticket sales down a little bit. And what UFC did was brilliant. They secured a deal with Paramount. Do you think there are some races, instead of NASCAR shifting marketing and commercials to try to get people to come to these races and lowering tickets down to dirt cheap? Because I mean, last year for the Food City 500, they literally had buy one get one free tickets. That's what it was, and that didn't work. It worked a little bit, but it wasn't anything like a fall race date. So if you're NASCAR, do you start trying to trend more towards getting these streaming deals locked down for certain events that cannot get these butts and seats? Or do you kind of go in a different direction than that? I mean, like and to be truthful, I don't know
I
what you would do. I don't.
so I think they don't. I'm going to do a two-part answer on this.
Okay.
So number one, they don't need to follow a UFC, a WWE, uh, when it comes to locking in a contract with a specific streaming service to have like a whole season just to get a specific uh, amount of income for said races. However, I feel like what they did last year with Prime Video and HBO Max and from those two entities in itself having a set number of races that where they are to be viewed on only those programmings definitely created some revenue for NASCAR, which I feel like would have helped when it came to the ticket sale prices, and I think that was a big win for NASCAR. Because not to mention, like like you said, instead of focusing on commercials and focusing on uh, all those other things, like they kept it simple. They had their own color commentary specifically for Prime. Um, and HBO Max, they didn't really even do anything special with HBO Max from a commentary standpoint. All they did was say, hey, HBO Max, we want to use your streaming service to give our fans an in-car experience with our best drivers. That's it. You could go on HBO Max, you could sit in um, Kyle Larson's cockpit and use the in-car camera footage and just kind of watch how he's running the race. You could do it with Chase Elliott, Kyle Busch, whoever your favorite driver was. You could find that. They even had the four-car split screen, as you wouldn't typically see on like a Sunday ticket for four different NFL games. Those two things were genius on NASCAR's part. And with the way the shift of technology has gotten, and to your point, talking about streaming services, I think it would be very beneficial to NASCAR if they want to go into a streaming era to start talking to Netflix and to Disney Plus and to um, Paramount and other companies like that to see if you can get deals for specific segments of the NASCAR season, and then keep like I don't know the more well-known companies, so maybe like a Netflix or back to Prime for like your crown jewel races.
Now, I would like to propose this, and this is all I really got. I was trying so hard to find the Reddit thread from 2020 because I remember it. But, and you may remember this. Do you remember the idea that got floated around that in 2021 or 2022, NASCAR was going to roll out with its own essential streaming platform thing? It was going to kind of be like Dirt Vision in a way, or Flow Racing, whatever you want to call it. And it would have the broadcast, and there wouldn't be any commercials or anything like that. It would be the broadcast, and then they would have other cameras, like they would have the control tower camera, other various viewpoints that you could just sit and watch it from there. There would be the driver cams, and there was one other thing. There was that. Okay, well, pretty much that, but just centered in that application. Do you think that right there would be a good way to go about it, or do you think we have enough data on streaming to see if that would even work? Because I know a lot of old people out there. I'm not gonna throw too many stereotypes around, but it's usually people generally with the three tattooed to their arm. They don't like these kinds of things.
So I would answer that saying that if they did a streaming service solely like that, yes, it would be nice as a NASCAR fan to be able to watch these races and not be interrupted with commercials uh, and things like that. But then there's the consequence of that, which why would you pay ticket prices to go see the track when you get all the same views right on your phone?
Right.
So then that would do more damage than good. I think, like I said, I think the way that they did it last year, specifically with Prime, was a good introduction into getting their fingers wet with the streaming way of life that the whole like world and the way things are today is shifting over to it. I think there's more opportunity there, especially with how now there isn't just a win and you're in with how the playoff structure is, with how the whole season is laid out. I think this opens the door more for things like that. And I'm definitely intrigued to see how NASCAR is going to utilize it given the data that they got from last year with Prime and with HBO Max to help generate more funds to where they don't have to have these ticket prices jacked up to get. So not only are they getting more dollars in just from the streaming aspect because it's easier and it's more accessible for the local NASCAR fan, but then at the same time, you're able to lower the ticket costs, which will start filling up the tracks again. So I think they're on a good slow build of in an upward trajectory, based on those two things.
Agreed.
But I will say this: we went on a lot longer than I was anticipating that we were, especially for it just being me and you, and not having the opinions of our other fellow broadcast partners. So once again, I just want to shout out both Greg and Ryan. Get well, take care of yourselves. We'll look forward to seeing you guys next week. Definitely want to thank Will and the Alkali Project for the intro and outro of our podcast, and Circle B Diecast for being one of our sponsors. If you haven't checked them out yet, please go definitely do so. The 2026 cars are out. I know I've already purchased my Chase Elliott Prime car, and I don't know if you've looked at any of the new Kyle Busch schemes yet, Eli, on Circle B.
No, my
But
Capital
if
One
you
card's
haven't,
afraid to. No, my Capital One card's too afraid to get on there yet. I don't know.
but they definitely got some good stuff over there, so check them out. But on a Snowden, maybe rain delayed week, this has been the Lap Down Podcast, and hopefully next week we'll talk about some racing that was had. If not, then we'll just jump right into Daytona week. We'll get some early championship predictions, and maybe there will be a hot take or two from JP. You never know. That man's always coming up with something crazy. But till next week, I'm Jamie. This was Eli, and let's have a safe night, and let's go racing, boys. Deuces. All
How do
right.
we? How do
So
we? How do we stop it?
what we did the last time is we just both had to leave at the same time.
Okay.
And then Cobra will or Jason will come in, and when he sees it, and when you hit leave, gotta wait for everything to load. Otherwise,
Okay.
it'll mess up the audio. So don't just close out the app. Just hit leave. Let it fully sync up, and then we'll be all good.
All right. Cool.
All right, man. But I think we did a good job.
I think we did too, dude. I'm pretty proud of it.
Yeah, we didn't get fired.
Not that I'm aware of. You know, there's always
Yep,
time for
yep.
everything. Though.
There is. But
All right, buddy.
all right, if you want
I'll
to
see
keep
you later.
chatting, you can call me.
Okay. Yeah. Hang on. I'll call
All right,
you
dude.
back here in
See
just a second. All right. Later.
Okay. See ya.